As the mayor of the town of Clayton, I'd like to call this Clayton Town Council meeting to order. Ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Most gracious and heavenly Father, we pause to give you thanks for the many blessings of this day. And we ask, Lord, now that you be with us as we proceed with the business for the town of Clayton. For it's in your great name we pray. Amen. Amen. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Mayor, I have two. One, I would like to move the WRF discussion up from managers' reports to item number 4 under old business. I believe that's 4. Yep, item D under old business. And then I'd also like to ask that we go into a closed session at the end of the meeting on personnel matters.
So 4D will be an update.
Water reclamation, WRF update.
Okay.
Water reclamation facility.
In a closed session. All right. Have that duly noted. Up next is the consent agenda.
Move we approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, up next under administrative items is the Town of Clayton 2021 holiday schedule.
Before you this evening, you see a resolution that lists out the 2021 holiday schedule for Town of Clayton and its employees. Historically, we have followed the North Carolina state schedule, and that's what I'm asking for adoption for this evening.
All right, questions or comments for the clerk? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt resolution 2020-35.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adoption of the resolution 2020-35. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, sign. Motion carries. The next administrative item is the 2021 scheduled town council meetings.
Before you see a resolution asking to adopt our formal schedule for 2021 for town council meetings. They are held every month, twice, on the first and third Monday of each month. The only exception to that is the month of July, where only one meeting is held, and that will be held on July 19th this year, and I'm asking for adoption of that resolution.
All right, questions or comments? Being none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we adopt resolution 2020-36.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the adoption of the resolution 2020-36. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And the motion carries. Up next is the interlocal agreement, the EDA grant for the ECIA infrastructure project.
Mayor, Town Council, Rich Capola, Deputy Town Manager. This is a continuation of an item that we've discussed previously with regard to the award of an EDA grant in the amount of $6 million for the construction of infrastructure improvements related to wastewater, particularly the ECIA pump station being expanded and a new pipeline built to the future wastewater treatment plant site. As part of that grant application, we did have a share. We were sharing that grant with Johnston County. The ratios are described in this interlocal agreement, but we are identified as the lead agency moving forward for administration of the grant. This is pretty much the mechanism for us to be able to move forward with accepting the grant and kicking off the project. So if you have any questions, just let me know.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Rich? All right, being none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we approve.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the interlocal agreement. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, and item 4D will be the wastewater reclamation treatment facility update.
Yeah. With respect to the $120 million water reclamation facility, we're making good progress. We have had our financial advisor Davenport kick off its meeting on the financial funding, and that is moving well. We have a few more, another round of application with the Local Government Commission coming up in November. And we met at the offices of Parker Poe with Russell Killian to get our design build contract ready to be advertised. So we've gone through that, and that will be advertised at the end of October. So
Great.
things are on plan, a lot of activity going on, but everything's on course.
That is a great update, JD. Thank you. Are there questions for JD? All right, thank you so much. Up next, under introductions and special presentation, the first one is the Public Power Week proclamation. Public Power Week proclamation. So I'm already tongue-tied and I hadn't even started reading, so this should be interesting, okay? It's all right. Proclamation. Whereas public power is a critical component in cities and towns across North Carolina, contributing to the overall health and communities by providing reliable electricity, excellent local service, and prompt restoration. Whereas the town of Clayton is part of North Carolina's more than 70 public power cities and towns, and are among more than 2,000 across the country. Whereas Clayton's electric department has been assisting our citizens through boom times as well as pandemics and economic downturns. Whereas public power meets the electric needs of 49 million Americans, almost 15% of electricity customers. Whereas North Carolina's public power utilities are a valuable community asset that contribute to the well-being of the community and provide economic development opportunities. Whereas North Carolina's public power utilities are a dependable institution that provides excellent service and a commitment to community. And therefore be it resolved, the Clayton Town Council offers their appreciation to all members of the Clayton Electric Department for their dedication and contribution to our community, and recognize the week of October 4th, 2020 as Public Power Week, duly proclaimed this 5th day of October 2020 while in regular session. And I would like to present this to Dale for all the good work in your department, sir. Yeah, I think they deserve a good round of applause. Sorry, I don't give us all the right thing. We want to thank you and your crew for all the good work that you do for Town Clerk.
Framing with a steel, it's good.
Is that what this next is for?
Thank you.
Up next is the recognition of Robert Yarborough's work for Novo DAPI project.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Rich Capola again. Excited to have Robert here tonight and recognize him for his great work that's been going on out at the Novo DAPI project. Effectively, about 2 weeks ago on September 17th, Robert signed what is the final of this certificates of occupancy for that major project. That's been many, many years in the making. A couple of the statistics, over 11 million man hours of construction on that project. Over 4,000 inspection hours done by this man alone. Other staff obviously were involved, but Robert really put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears likely. And that 4,000 hours, I guarantee you, doesn't include all the time spent after hours and on the weekends just trying to make sure that he could help make that project successful. It was a great collaboration between us and Novo Nordisk, and I'll let Shayla say some words here in a minute, but really just a really exciting moment for us. It's been several years in the making, obviously, and this kind of ceremonial signing of the COs certainly doesn't mean things are over out there, but it was a major, major milestone for what effectively is 850,000 square feet of buildings that this man has walked every inch of multiple times. So just wanted to recognize Robert and his great efforts. We have an award that we want to provide to him in and appreciation of his service for all these many years. Just really can't say enough about the great work, and certainly let Shayla jump in here if you want.
Yes, good evening, Town of Clayton, Mayor, JD. On behalf of Nova Nordisk, I'm here today to thank Mr. Yarborough for all the hard work. As Rich said, it was 850,000 square feet of construction. That is a lot of feet, right? We wanted to make sure that not just Clayton acknowledged all of his hard work, but that his hard work was acknowledged at the state. So we shared his good work with the insurance commissioner, and he signed a letter addressed to Mr. Yarborough. If it's okay, can I read it?
Please.
Dear Mr. Yarborough, dated August 13, 2020. Dear Mr. Yarborough, I want to express my sincere appreciation for the hard work and diligence you perform on a day-to-day basis as an inspector. I was brought to my attention of your outstanding work, especially on the complex of Novo Nordisk Pharmaceuticals manufacturing facility in Clayton, North Carolina. Since taking office, I have employed top-notch leaders who oversee building inspections in this great state. They relayed to me that Novo Nordisk's project was extremely detailed, and you stepped up to the job, saw what needed to be done, and masterfully conquered what was put before you. Coming from them, I am certain of your standard of excellence. It is not often I get to write these letters, but when I do, it makes me so very proud that you are a part of the North Carolina inspection team and that you serve the people of North Carolina in such a professional manner. Thank you for a job well done. Sincerely, Mike Causey, North Carolina Insurance Commissioner and State Fire Marshal. So on behalf of Novo Nordisk, thank you so much.
And on behalf of the town of Clayton, I'd like to issue a special recognition. Whereas in March of 2016, Novo Nordisk, a global healthcare company with more than 90 years of innovation and leadership in diabetes care, broke ground on a new $2 billion diabetes medicine production facility. And whereas this massive facility was being built to produce active pharmaceutical ingredients for a range of life-saving medications to treat diabetes and obesity in the U.S. for the decade ahead, and whereas the new facility would measure 833,000 square feet and have a footprint of 417,639 square feet, the equivalent of approximately 7 football fields. And whereas this expansion was expected to create close to 700 new jobs with an average salary that is $68,000, $22,000 higher than the current average salary and $15,000 more than the median household income in Johnston County. And whereas at peak construction, this project brought up to 2,500 people working on the site at one time, and whereas one of those thousands of people working in the massive pharma mini-city that popped up in a former farm field was Senior Supervisor Code Enforcement Officer Robert Yarborough. And whereas through the start of the project to the final certificate of occupancy this past month, Robert likely worked 5,000 hours, sometimes 16-hour days, ensuring that every step of the way and every inch of this grand facility was inspected. And whereas Novo Nordisk made a $1 billion decision to build in Clayton, Clayton sat confident knowing that investment was in the trusting hands of its top-notch inspector, Robert Yarborough. Therefore, on behalf of the Town Council, I, Jody McLeod, Mayor of the Town of Clayton, hereby proclaim special recognition to Senior Supervisor Code Enforcement Official Robert Yarborough for his exemplary performance and dedication over the past 4 years to what was the largest life science investment ever made in the history of North Carolina, duly proclaimed this 5th day of October, 2020. Thank you. Up next on your agenda is the proclamation in recognition of Arches Lodge and Cleveland Fire Departments. And I will start by turning the floor over to Chief Lee Barbie.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Every couple of years, the fire department comes before you and we do the ritual of our local agreements with the county, contracts, and have the relationships of mutual aid with the departments. But in the last month, I think town staff and elected officials got to see a different situation. Through the month of August and September, there was a close relationship, as there's always been, but it was more noticed with Archer Lodge and Cleveland Fire Departments through this COVID deal we were doing and the guys in the hospital. So there was an opportunity to work together and them to help us with what our duties were. Through my career, I've never gone out and asked for help from other departments. I've always been on the giving end, and that was just what you do. But the chiefs from Archer Lodge and Cleveland and Garner sat down with me during this time and offered their support, and I gladly accepted it. And the end of August, we went through a 3-day cycle where they relieved our guys with the help of Wake County. And I remember Stacy asked me, we need to put something out. I told her you didn't need to put anything out for this because nobody would notice the difference. It don't matter what name's on the truck. It just matters that the job gets done. And we proved that point. I think Zebulon was one of the departments that helped fill in for us. And that was Chief Perry's statement also. And then when we had the firefighter death, he stepped in again and helped us. And I think through town staff meetings and through meetings that the mayor and Councilman Thompson was in, I think y'all noticed, it don't matter what name's on the truck. It don't matter what name is on the department. We do our job and we work very close together. So tonight you have Chief Ellington from Cleveland and Mike Mellon, who is board president, I think, for Archer Lodge. He's representing Chief Driver for a proclamation that y'all have for them. So at this time, I'll turn it over to you for that. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask those two gentlemen to join you at the podium, Chief. Proclamation. Whereas firefighters follow a long line of tradition and honor that inspires them to help colleagues, neighbors, and strangers alike. And whereas at a moment's notice, firefighters respond without hesitation to any and all situations, no matter their danger, in order to protect individuals, families, and their fellow first responders in the community. And whereas too many firefighters and first responders have fallen while protecting the public from countless fires, emergencies, and now a deadly pandemic. And whereas during the month of August 2020, the Clayton Fire Department was hit hard by COVID-19 and sadly lost Deputy Chief Jason Dean to a hard-fought battle with the virus. And whereas the Cleveland and Archer Lodge fire chiefs stepped up to offer mutual aid, relief coverage, hundreds of hours of planning, and endless resources to ensure our firefighters were supported, our community received the same quality fire response, and our fallen firefighter received a day of remembrance that rivaled that of any other celebration of heroes. And whereas these two leaders and their departments performed duties and rendered invaluable services for their fellow Clayton brothers and sisters, and brought together dozens of other local and state departments and agencies, serving to create an army of support for Clayton's fire family. Therefore, on behalf of the town of Clayton and the Clayton community, I, Jody McLeod, Mayor of the town of Clayton, hereby proclaim the highest appreciation and gratitude to the Cleveland Fire Chief Chris Ellington and the Archer Lodge Fire Chief Philip Driver and their entire departments for their truly unselfish response and invaluable assistance to the Clayton Fire Department, Town of Clayton, and the people of Clayton, duly proclaimed this 5th day of October, 2020. Gentlemen, we can never say thank you enough to you and to your departments. And I'd like to present these to you. It feels so refreshing to be able to honor and thank and appreciate all the good things that we have going on. And I am, and this council is very appreciative to everybody. Up next under old business is the Horne Street parking lot award bid.
Joshua Baird, Town Engineer. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I come before you tonight regarding the Horne Street Parking Lot Expansion Project. On September 24th, town staff received sealed formal bids for the construction project. We received a total of 6 bids, ranging from in the low 600s to low 900,000. The lowest bidder was Daniels Incorporated of Garner with a base bid of $621,227.50. The bids did include one alternate for the installation of irrigation. Daniels, the low bidder, alternate for irrigation was $26,620 for the landscaping around as part of the project. Previous town council action set up a capital project fund earlier this year of an amount of $800,000 budget for this project. That includes $550,000 from the general fund and $250,000 from the utility for the utility work that's associated with the project to replace some aging infrastructure on the utility side. So in addition to the construction contractor and the contractor's amount, there's additional CA and CEI, construction administration and construction engineering inspections that will also need to take place from that budget, as well as some previous discussions with the existing and adjacent homeowners regarding a fence. We're working to just evaluate that fence and ensure that we can deliver that in budget as we work through that. The contract that we're proposing is based on standard EJCDC documents. It has been reviewed by the town attorney, and following award of the contract, we work with staff and the contractor to come up with the best date for a notice to proceed. Tonight, staff requests town council authorize town manager or designee to execute the construction contract and any change orders required to completely deliver the project. So I'll take any questions if there may be.
That is great news. Any questions and comments? All right, being none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we adopt Resolution 2020-37.
Second.
A motion and a second for the adoption of the Resolution 2020-37. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you.
Up next on our agenda is the bulky waste contract update with Mr. Blake Mills.
Mayor, Council, just as you guys, just for reflection, if you remember last meeting, we talked about about $100,000 overage we were projecting for the year. Blake and Steve and I and others have sat down with our vendor and worked out some different options. They're going to hear those tonight, where we can minimize the stress on the budget this year. Blake, all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. Blake Mills, Assistant Director of Public Services. Got with me tonight Steve Blasco, who is our Public Works Operations Manager. We're going to give you an update on bulky waste. And when we last talked, as JD was saying, we were talking about a fiscal year budget of 21 of $80,000. And based on current trends, we were looking at huge volumes of increases, really what we felt due to COVID, people doing special projects, cleaning out, storage areas and that sort of thing. So we'd had a big spike, and we were looking as high as maybe 184, so as much as $104,000 over the budget. So we currently pay for bulky waste on a per pickup basis. So what we've done is we've gone back and we've renegotiated the contract with our contractor, All-Star. And All-Star is now looking at proposing to charge us on a flat rate per house, similar to what we do for solid waste. We pay for each and every house. Loose leaf, we pay for each and every house. As a flat rate is how we do it, whether they use the service or not, as far as loose leaf and leaf vacuum services. So they're proposing to charge us 74 cents per house per month in fiscal year 21. Now, what that does for us, it ends up being a net zero. There's no extra cost in fiscal year 21. We're going to be at our $80,000. So we're good for this year. But next year, they're proposing to charge a little more. And they need to charge more to make up for some losses this year. So to balance out those 2 years, they're looking at charging $1.06 per house. Now, the $1.06 per house is about $34,000 more than the $80,000 in fiscal year 22. So is that a fair price, the $1.06? Well, what we've also done is we've looked at All-Star does work the same service for Garner, but there they do it as a flat rate fee. So we've determined what those flat rate fee would be. That fee there is $1.04 per house. We're paying $1.06. But they're paying $1.04 for fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22. We're paying $1.74 for fiscal year 21, $1.06 for 22. We're really averaging 90 cents. So it's lesser than Garner. So yes, it is a fair price. So the advantage of doing it on a flat rate is we don't have those spikes. We have something that we can budget for, and it's really similar to how we do other services. So the impact of this increase in cost of $34,000 on fiscal year 22, what it really comes down to is we charge $20.50 to everybody for waste services. So an extra 32 cents is really what that $34,000 ends up costing per month. But also our contract is structured where we would have a CPI built in. So CPI is also built in every year, and it varies depending on what the CPI is. But if it's going to be 3%, that's about another 65 cents. So you got 32 cents, 65 cents. So maybe we're looking at $1 increases over and above the 2050 in fiscal year 22. Now, also in fiscal year 22, at the end of the year, in June, our contract with All-Star ends. So at that time, we could rebid the contract, or we have a provision in the contract to renegotiate, or basically to renew it for another 5 years. And at that time, we would obviously look, if we decide to renew it, we would look at, the State of the Union and solid waste services and look at the unit prices and see if they're still applicable. It'd be open to negotiate any and all of the unit prices. But the one we'd be looking at more carefully, of course, is bulky waste. Is that 106 a true number, or is it really a number that's higher because of COVID and maybe things have changed quite a bit? We're going back to normal levels. So we'd revisit that number at that time. Now also we would, if we do end up renegotiating and extending the contract, what we'd want to do at that time is loose leaf is not in alignment with the waste services contract. So loose leaf actually doesn't end until fiscal year 24 at the end of that, June 2024. So we would align those contracts if we choose to extend the contract with All-Star at that time. So what I'm looking for, or we're looking for tonight, is for you to approve the bid proposal from All-Star and then authorize the town manager to execute the contract. That concludes my presentation.
Very good, thank you. Any questions or comments?
Here before we go.
Yes, sir.
I want to praise both these guys again, but we looked at several options where we would go ahead and extend the contract because it does have another 5-year option or up to 5 years. And I think all the parties, in the spirit of working together and trying to figure out whether this was just a COVID effect or a long-term rental effect or move in, move out thing on our front, I think all the parties agreed after looking at several options that this kind of year-and-a-half option was a better thing. And as Blake said, to regroup next year when we look at the whole contract, and either we can walk away from it or we can continue to negotiate for some outer years. So I just want to make sure that's clear. We did look at a number of options to shorten it or lengthen it, and this seemed like the best one, and all the parties seemed to work good together on that deal.
That's good. Mr. Holder?
Does this mean that if I were to put out 4 feet wide, 4 feet high, 20 feet long, they'll pick it all up, or they're only going to pick up 6 feet?
Well, again, bulky waste is you may be talking about yard waste, and yard waste certainly has some rules, but if it's bulky waste, we have one big item or 2 small items is the way the contract's structured now. We'd still have a similar structure there, but All-Star could choose to take it all, because if they don't take it this week, they got to take it next week when you put it back out again. So ultimately, they're going to take it at some point in time, and they'll make a judgment call based on how full the truck is at the time. But they will take all your bulky waste if you space it out over the weeks in accordance with the rules. So they still have to follow those volume rules. That's correct. Those will still be in place. So we haven't given unlimited, the whole house can be at the street. We haven't, that's not allowed. There's still a limit per week.
Anyone else? All right, great. Thank you very much. And I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the bulky waste amendment to the All-Star contract.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve, for the approval of the bulky waste amendment to the All-Star contract. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? One?
Yes, sir.
Okay. One opposed, Councilman Everett. So the approval passes. Up next, the fire department ladder truck finance agreement.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Robert McKay, Finance Director. Tonight, we're asking council to approve a resolution that authorizes staff to enter into a installment financing contract for the ladder truck for an amount not to exceed $871,621 at an interest rate of 2.3344 for a term of 10 years. At the last budget meeting, at the last council meeting, we appropriated the funds to purchase the truck. And since then, this project was in our CIP. It's going to be 50% funded by Claytex. So the town's need for financing a purchase is cut in half, which is why we got the about a little bit shy of 872. So this resolution will allow us to enter into this finance agreement with Freeman Financial.
That's great. Questions or comments for finance? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt resolution 2020-38. Second.
We have a motion and a second for adoption of the resolution 2020-38. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you. Up next under new business is the purchase order carryover budget ordinances.
All right, tonight we have 3 separate budget amendments that are related to the unexpended balance at the end of June on projects that were ongoing at the end of the last fiscal year. The first amendment is with the electric fund. We have approximately $354,000 total amount of projects that were in the budget. For the most part, only one was underway. The easements and the other projects are pending easements. So those projects are planning on getting off the ground this year once the easements are obtained. And we're going to carry over those funds. We're asking council to approve appropriation of fund balance. Those projects were in the budget last year. We're going to carry those over into the current fiscal year so we can hopefully wrap those up. So I'm going to go through each in minutes separately. So if you want to take action on them individually, that might, or we can do them all, whatever you prefer, Mayor.
What's the wishes of the council?
Do them all.
We're going to do them all.
Okay. All right, the second budget amendment is in the general fund. It's the same situation. We have ongoing projects that were primarily in the general fund. Well, all these were the pandemic had a severe impact on the completion of these projects. A lot of these projects, the completion date was severely impeded timing-wise with getting those projects completed, and some of them may not have got off the ground until late in the year or even commenced in the current fiscal year. So in the general fund, we have a little bit shy of $840,000 that we're asking council to carry over. The lion's share of that is related to a $700,000 fund balance appropriation we did last year for design services for our GEO bond program, our Parks and Rec program. We have $623,000 unexpended on a couple of POs, so we're bringing that forward, and but that's the biggest share in the general fund. The last budget amendment is on the water sewer fund. Again, very similar set of circumstances. We have approximately $446,000 of purchase orders that for projects that were ongoing. A couple of them have already been completed in the current fiscal year. Again, the timing of these projects was impacted by the pandemic, the uncertainty around getting those off the ground and completing them. If I have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain any questions council has regarding any of the particular budget amendments, the projects on here. I know we got some staff here tonight, so if I can't answer specific detailed questions about the projects, we got some staff members here that should be able to backfill.
I have a question. The $622,000 for the Clayton Center expansion and design of park projects, why would that not come out of the bond fund?
The game plan there, if you recall, Mr. Holder, was at some point we're going to reimburse ourselves from the bond proceeds and when we go to issue those bonds. But we haven't issued any bonds yet, and we will. So we're basically, timing-wise, we're spending this money. We appropriated it last year. We didn't spend all of it. I'm not sure. Josh, how much money are we going to spend this year? Are we going to get all of it spent?
The upcoming year?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But at some point when we finally do our GO bond issuance, we will reimburse ourselves for these costs.
Let's be sure we mark it.
No, we won't be doing a GO bond issue this year. Davenport will be working on the timeline in conjunction with, Joshua, we got to get the projects lined up. We basically, when we go to the LGC for approval, we're going to have bids in hand for the LGC to approve us to issue those GO bonds. So timing wise, I don't know how far we are out.
All I'm saying is make sure we get that when the time comes.
Yeah. We will. Any other questions?
Is that it?
That's it. There's 3 budget amendments there.
Okay. If there's no further questions for finance, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we adopt ordinance 2020-10-01, ordinance 2020-10-02, and ordinance 2020-10-03. Second.
We have a motion and a second for the adoption of the 3 ordinances listed in your agenda. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Like sign, and the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Up next on the agenda is Project Goodwill Budget Ordinance with Patrick Pierce, our Economic Development Director.
Mr. Mayor, as Patrick comes up, just an overview of this project. This is a multi-jurisdictional economic development project where we have, and Patrick will tell you, have agreed to pay our part of the fees in this partnership. Johnston Community College is paying theirs and have already signed the contract with Stewart. So this is to, without getting in the details of a confidentiality agreement, this is your request for a new budget item. This was not in the budget, but something we're expected to participate in, and I'll let Patrick give you the rest of those details.
Great, thank you. I'm Patrick Pierce. I'm the Economic Development Director here at the Town of Clayton. Yeah, this amendment is to appropriate fund balance to the town's proportional share of the feasibility study for this regional economic development project. This project supports major elements of our economic development strategy, including transportation, higher education, parks, and of course partnerships. The amendment is required for compliance with GS 15915. It's been reviewed by Town Council, Planning, Engineering, and Public Services, and the amount is $36,000. And this will move forward an important piece of our strategy, and I think our town plans going forward.
Absolutely. Any questions or comments for Patrick? Mr. Granis.
A couple of questions, Patrick. I noticed in both contracts that a water model preparation has been excluded, and also a TIA, which traffic impact analysis, has been excluded. I would assume that both of those are going to have to take place at some juncture with this property. Is that fair to say?
I would think at some point with the uses being done, yes. And I think the water modeling, we're also working with engineering to make sure we had the correct things at this point in the project into this feasibility study. And then I think as we move further along, the traffic analysis would be, a part of, once we get past the feasibility part of this, that would be, the appropriate time that those things would start coming in.
And who would bear those financial responsibilities? Would that be joint, or would it be weighted, or would it be exclusive to one or the other?
I think part of this is the feasibility to figure out those uses there, but given the multiple different players there, I think that's going to be shared. But I think a lot of those impacts probably will go on more of the other partners. But I think that'll be obviously we'll figure that out as we go along here.
Okay. And also, I noticed that there is some, quote, park property that will become a part of this, and it appears based on the contract that would be our responsibility for maintenance. Do we know how much of that 12 acres is usable, and has anything been designated with respect to that particular park property at this juncture?
I think that's part of the feasibility component here, is to figure out, given the topography and other restrictions on the land, what would be appropriate there. There's also been conversation on, which partner would ultimately take ultimate responsibility for that. So if it made more sense for the town or one of the other partners to have control of that property, I think that's really will be dictated by this part of the feasibility in terms of what can be done there and who the best partner is going forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right. Thank you, Patrick. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2020-10-04.
Second. We have a motion and a second for the adoption of the ordinance 2020-10-04. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right, up next is utility conversion, buried electric lines. Mr. Medlin.
How you doing, Mayor?
I'm well.
Council members. As you know, since I've been in this position, I've been asked multiple times, why can't we take the overhead lines and put them underground on Main Street? I can name, I can go on and on, name people who ask me that, and it's a legitimate question. So finally, we got it in the budget. You guys approved it, and we hired utility electrical consultants. Their representative, Mr. Tony Pierce, is right behind me here, and he done as JD can attest, a very comprehensive PowerPoint and plan to give y'all an overall view of some of the obstacles that we have in front of us trying to convert overhead to underground. And he did, and obviously I know everybody wants to know the nominal number, and he's got that. Keep in mind, it's an estimated number, but it's a pretty good number. He worked very hard working in unison with the CenturyLinks, Time Warners, trying to get a very, a good number to bring to you guys. So without further ado, I'll bring Tony up and we'll bring the PowerPoint up.
Might have get our clicker. While they're bringing PowerPoint up, just a reminder, this is not an action item tonight. There are several major capital projects that are out there. This is one of them, and it's just like some of the others, it's a very important one. But now that the study's finished, I wanted you guys to be able to see it tonight and get some insights. And with Deputy Manager Coppola, we will be talking about how do we integrate all of these great projects into a capital improvement program that the town can afford. So that's where this is all heading.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name's Tony Pierce. Dale kind of stole my opening line there. I was going to say that as long as I've been working with Clayton, which goes back to the early days of Ronnie Wood, I think maybe before that, discussions have been around about getting the utilities underground on Main Street, and I'm sure they were discussed before that as well, but we've been looking at this for a long time. And I think Ronnie did a lot in the Main Street downtown proper to get some of the power out to the point that we only have power at kind of each end of the area that we're looking at tonight, but still other things, cable TV and telephone, we have to deal with. So we took a little bit more of an in-depth look at it. As Dale said, the original PowerPoint was much longer. For the sake of time, we've cut it down considerably, but I think we can still get the main points across. Of course, the purpose here, our scope is looking at, of course, Main Street, but we're looking from Robertson Street on the east to, excuse me, that's the west, to Smith on the east end of the project. So the original PowerPoint had a long section that I did that was kind of a tutorial, if you will, on what it takes to put overhead power underground, looking at the wires versus the cables and design differences and that kind of thing. And it's fascinating stuff. It's good stuff. But for an engineering nerd like myself, maybe it is. But we cut a lot of that out. But one thing I did want to point out from that section is that when you go from overhead to underground power, a lot of times you don't get a polished, finished look like you do if something's underground from the beginning. When you go in a subdivision that's new, it's designed from the beginning to be underground. The meter bases are set up for it. Of course, your shopping centers are the same way. The services are set up for the underground. Your primary at the road may still be overhead. But when we have to deal with existing overhead, we have things like you see on the screen here where we have a service mast that comes up. The thing on top that keeps out water is called a weatherhead. And what the blue arrow is pointing to is splices. And that is where, in an overhead system, the utility ends its responsibility, and the owner's equipment goes on from there. So the service mast, the weatherhead, the wires are all owned by the owner. You can see we've got two businesses in the same structure here where the services go down in the middle of the building. You've got one in the paint store here that goes down in the building. Those things are really not in the purview of the utility. You have to hire electricians if you wanted to get into that. Linemen are not, they're qualified to do what they do, but they don't do inside wiring. Once you start messing with that kind of stuff inside the buildings, you have to bring things up to current code. And you start peeling back an onion that you may never get to the middle of when you start doing that. So just as a cautionary note, when the project happens, if it happens, you still will have some old remnants of services that, we don't want people to go in and think, well, I thought we were getting rid of all this stuff. So you still may have some old remnants. We get rid of as much as we can, but that last little section, you may have to put a pole close to the house, come up the pole and jump her over to the service. There's some things that we can do that may get around that. But anyway, just kind of a cautionary note as far as what things might look like when we get done. Look much, much better, but still may have a few remnants left over. So what did we look at? We looked at power, of course. We have telephone. We have cable TV. We looked at the lighting. Looked at maybe going more toward a Horne Square type lighting system for the whole route. And we also looked at the traffic signals, which they could stand alone, but once we're looking at doing this, probably the traffic signals can be improved as far as aesthetics as well. Again, as I mentioned, the high voltage primary is only present at each end. Robertson to O'Neill, and we do have a crossing at Lombard, and then Smith Street, there's a block or so there. Most of what you see in downtown proper is cable and telephone now. So of course we know what the overhead power looks like. Telephone is CenturyLink, and then cable TV is Charter. Most of the big cables, usually the bottom two or three are telephone. The top one is usually cable where the blue arrow is pointing, but most of what you see is cable and TV in the, like I said, downtown proper area. We also looked at street lights. What we have now, if there are any lights in the particular area, is older poles with overhead services. So we looked at going to something like the Horne Square type lights. And we also looked at signals. We have wood poles now with their guide wood poles and messenger cables. And so we looked at what the cost would be to go to a davit arm type construction. Looks a lot better. I'm going to go on one more tangent, and I hope I don't take too long. But as you walk through and look at a project like this, other things start to jump out. And a lot of the contractors that I talk with say that the projects they've worked on, the utility part is not independent is not done independently. It's always done as a part of a larger streetscape or beautification program, whatever you may want to call it. But, and I know you've done a streetscape study, and I think that was, I don't know, I don't think it was acted upon, but I know you've looked at one. So we've got all kinds of different areas, as you know. We got sidewalks that go from the street to the buildings. We've got sidewalks that kind of merge into parking areas. We've got sidewalks with green in the front, green in the back. We could go on and on about the different areas that we have. We've got sidewalks that are not in very good shape. We've got trees, a lot of different types of trees, and a lot of those trees, the roots are pushing up the sidewalk. One of the days I walked through, there was actually a crew, a little portable crew with the grinding equipment that was getting rid of the trip hazards, where you can see it's been ground down. When we do utilities, obviously we end up with things we need to put in the sidewalks. Lights, the little green box there is a handhold for the lighting conductors. I'm not a tree expert, but I gather you put some of these things in there to take care of the roots problem. A lot of this stuff is in the town of Wake Forest, which has done a project similar to what we're looking at here. But when you know where the sidewalks are going to be or what the ultimate plan is, you can look at maybe boxing out areas specific for utilities. You can look at putting the utilities behind where the sidewalk is. I guess the takeaway is how that final big picture view looks kind of gives us a guide as to how to approach the utilities and where we can put them. I don't think we want to come back in a few years and say, I really wish we'd have done these utilities differently. And we also don't want to come back, I don't know what the timeline would be, but we don't want to disrupt traffic and disrupt business and then a few years later come back and far as a streetscape and do the same thing again. We probably need to check with our water and sewer folks and see if that infrastructure is aging, to see if that's something that needs to be in there. And there could be a cost savings. I mean, logic says if you go in and tear up the sidewalks to put down pavers, that you could come in and put your stuff in that area at the same time, and you wouldn't be doing it as a separate project. So this is not my area of expertise, but and I'm not the first one who's thought about this question either. But as we did this, it was obvious that this may need to be a group effort with planning and the rest of the departments to look at whether we want to do this in isolation or not. So that's my tangent. But the costs, which everybody's looking for, my proposal was rather than have each entity go in and do their own thing, telephone go in and do their boring from point to point, cable TV, power, everything, everybody doing their own thing, was to go in the street, probably in the parking lanes would be the easiest, and put in a duct bank. What is a duct bank? It's just a multiple conduits surrounded by concrete to protect them, and then each individual utility would have its own raceway. Of course, the street has to be cut and you have to install it, but that would give us kind of a single highway, if you will, for everybody to have their facilities. They'd have to take it from the duct bank and get to their individual services from there, but it would streamline things some. The duct bank estimate from local contractor actually has a Clayton address. Carolina Conduit Systems came in and looked at that. They gave us an estimate of $2 million. So I'm glad everybody's sitting down because it starts there. The telephone folks said $1.25 to $1.5 million to put theirs underground. And of course, you got a lot of telephone in Clay. There's a switching office that's just down off of O'Neill, I think, or off of right beside the railroad. So it's not just on Main Street, it's on every street. There's a lot of stuff going back and forth telephone wise. So they got a lot to put in the ground. Cable TV is around $500,000 was their estimate. The Horne Square type lighting is about $200,000, so that doesn't sound too bad compared to the others. That's just the cost of purchasing the lights. You have to add labor and everything to that. The signals, I got a contractor that has been doing that for years, and they looked at each intersection. We've got 4, about $200,000 an intersection. And then our power costs, as far as transformers, cables in the ground, looking at the new services, was an estimate around $1 million. So not a small undertaking to clean it up. And I think that's why it's been talked about for a long time, and because it's not something that's very simple to do, and it's certainly not inexpensive. So I'll be glad to answer that. Like I said, that's a very brief version of a longer PowerPoint, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that anybody has.
All right, any questions or comments? Mr. Granis.
If we were to enter into a project like this, what would be the normal timeline from start to completion?
I think your engineering and coordination would probably be a year, and then probably at least another year for the construction with all the different entities that are involved in it. So I think from 2 years at least from beginning to end. And I went to the town of Wake Forest and looked at their stuff. They appeared to have phased in a lot of what, there's a lot of options. You can look at it in phases. You can maybe look at narrowing the scope to the center part. There's a lot of different ways you can look at it. But we just kind of looked at it from the whole scope of what, from Robertson to Smith. So we can always go back and hone it down or look at different things, so.
Are you aware of like any sort of grant dollars or other types of dollars that could help subsidize a project like this?
I'm not. I don't know if Dale's looked into any type of grants or anything along those lines.
And I think our next step, and I've talked to Rich about this, is we need to look at the water sewer. We need to look at some of the streetscapes. Those are all extra costs. There's also costs if you get in there and do the work, water, sewer, power. You've got the private side. Are you going to help people out to do that? We're helping some of our downtown business off with like awnings and stuff, but you may have costs associated with that if you choose. So I think from this foundation that we've got started, we'll build that into other projects that we've got and then maybe come back to you guys if this is something you want us to do and to look at what a total project may could cost and the whole timing of things. I think this is exactly what we wanted, and I think it's a great report and a great presentation, but it may just be the start of really trying to integrate this into other things. So.
Yeah, this is informational. This is not a presentation to do anything. It's just information. And of course, you all have a little small project out for a water reclamation facility. There are a lot of other things on your plate. So this is just something that's been looked at for a long time and just bringing it as information to consider. So.
All right. Anyone else? Mr. Medlin?
Just see if anybody had any more questions.
Dale, both of y'all doing a great job. Dale, thank you very much. And you brought this straight to me, I think the first week I was here and presented it. And it's a great project like we've all talked about. We've needed to do this for a long time, or at least look at it, and did a great job pulling this together for us, Dale. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great work. I was in Little Washington, North Carolina 6 or so weeks ago for the weekend, and they have completely done every bit of this in Little Washington, and their main street is completely dug up and fencing so you can't cross it anywhere, and there's working, fence all across the sidewalk where you walk under to get from one side to the other. It's been a huge store retail issue, but everybody is still all about it from the small businesses that were open when I was there, because they know that once you get through this one time that it's going to be amazing. And it's going to be 12-foot brick sidewalks and new, street redesign, streetscape, all of that. So it starts out, as a pretty hot mess for a while. But if you keep your eye on the prize, future investment, all of that, it really pays off. And now they're having a lot of their 3- and 4-story historic buildings being purchased and completely remodeled because of the good works of the infrastructure and getting rid of the power lines and making it like a place that you want to be all the time. So I think we got some possibilities in Clayton. Thank you for your good work.
I'll just wrap this up just to make sure I give Tony the credit he had. He had 139 slides ready to present to you guys. And JD made us cut them down, but it was pretty comprehensive. But
He told me he got it from 139 down to about 68, and I said, Dale, you got to do a little better than that. He did too, and Tony, you did a great job with what you had, so thank you, Dale.
You did an excellent job. Thank you both very much. All right. Up next is the COVID town facilities opening plan update. JD?
I'll start off by saying this is both a passionate and a sensitive topic for this town. Nevertheless, I'll remind, not just council doesn't need reminding, but the public, We work with a general fund of $32 million, a $26 million water and sewer fund, a $16 million electric fund, which means Clayton's a $74 million business. That's what the public owns and the amounts of goods and services we provide. So $74 million is a big business. And what we know is happening, despite everybody's concerns about COVID, is things are slowly starting to open back up. And as things have opened up and the governor's orders have come through, we are continuing to see people want to have access to our libraries, to our parks and recreation, to our town center, and they want to do so in a controlled manner. But sooner than later, and not tonight or tomorrow, we're going to get the order to open up. So what staff has been working on, and I've kind of put a fire underneath this the past month, is to be able to bring you guys a plan. Tonight I want to share some concepts that we've developed, the team has developed as we put it together. What we hope to bring you at the next meeting is a plan. And then that plan will be some specific details of how we would open up and a comparison to what some other communities and organizations we've already looked at, so that you guys will have some benchmarking, that you can look at what we may propose and against others, as well as the things that we would propose. So I want to give you 6 really principles, I guess, or overarching concepts that we want to do. One, and we've heard this loud and clear, we want a slow, phased opening to the public. Okay, we want to be careful how we do this in our community. What I've thought about and what we've done as a committee is to have a phase 1 reopening that goes about 60 or 90 days. It'll be very measured, very controlled, and give us some time to do some measurement and some observations to see what's working and what's not working. Okay. Part 2 of this that we've come up with is really 4 classes of facilities that we'll have different types of reopening plans for. The first class will be Town Hall and the Operations Center, and that's where mostly the public will be coming to for access, outside training events with any department within the city, the town will come here. Our class 2 will be our first responders in our wastewater treatment plant, the police department, the Fire Station 1, Fire Station 2, and Little Creek Water Reclamation Facility. Those will be facilities not really accessible to the public. We'll try to avoid that, but they will be places we'll be in all the time, 24 hours a day with our staff. So a little bit different approach for those facilities. Our class 3 type facilities, what we're calling them, will be Parks and Recreation, Library, and Clayton Center. What I call where our external programming is, where a lot of our community wants to come for brief parts of the day to do some kind of workout or training or a cultural event. And then the 4th will be the other buildings. So that'll be things like our storage buildings, our pump stations, and other buildings where nobody but a small select group of staff should be. So conceptually in part 2 would be just 4 types of buildings we'd have different approaches for. Third approach would be that training and major external events would be only at Town Hall or the Operations Center. And Operations Center, because we do have a big training room that could house some people, so those events will be there. The 4th will be 4 subparts, the operating principles for Town Hall and the Operations Center. Here we'll only have 1 point of access for the public. Of course, for fire, we'll have the points of egress all open, but only 1 point for the public to come in. We'll have signs to limit the public to certain areas of the building so that we don't want to build up gates, but we want to make it clear where the public should be and not be. We will have a sign-in, likely have some questions like if you've been exposed to COVID or do you feel bad, that people will have to check when they sign in. And preliminarily, we'll probably do temperature checks at the public sign-in and record those temperatures for the outside public as they come into the building. The 4th thing will be to limit our gatherings. I'll call it loitering for lack of a better thing, but people do like to come in public buildings and stand around, and we will try to keep people moving in and out. That may require an extra temporary staff person for some period of time, both to help with the temperature checks and to keep things flowing. But we'll do something along those lines if we have to. Our community programs like Parks and Rec, our 5th concept here will be, again, Parks and Rec, Library, and the Clayton Center. Limits on inside gathering, probably recommended by the governor. Even if we open back up, we'll still have some limits for the foreseeable future. And then we'll try to focus on the outside programming whenever we can, or reservations for our inside internal program, so that similar to what the library is doing now, the public can come in, but we want to know when they're coming and make appropriate means to clean up after certain events. Our sixth piece is just to stay aligned with practices that are being done by and reviewed by other entities. The city of Raleigh has a fairly good program for opening up. Johnston County School, the North Carolina General Assembly, and some of our nearby towns that are opening up too. So we want to learn from those lessons learned. So again, all the best practices regarding masks, social distancing, and all that stuff will remain as part of what we're doing now. But these will be some extra things that we'll do. And of course, as I said in the beginning, bring those plans to you next meeting with no rush on you to approve anything, and to kind of watch and see what the governor's ordering at the time and what's happening in the different communities as far as the COVID spread. So, but we do want to have you as town council ready and to be able to act when you tell us to reopen. So with that, I can take questions or any comments you may have as to how that sounds at a high level.
All right, questions or comments? I think it sounds really good, you know, and I think that it's fair to state for the record that, you know, while all of this has been a time for everyone to have to regroup and do things differently, the mission and the customer service has not failed. And we are still operating, you know, as a closed entity, and we're still producing great customer service. And, you know, there's always one or two that are impacted differently from all the rest. And I can, you know, appreciate and respect that. A couple of weeks ago, just a gentleman here that, you know, needed to pay cash for his bills or those types of things. But, and we'll finally get back to that. But, you know, more importantly than anything, I think it's that we want to make sure not only do we have a safe environment for the public, but that we definitely have a safe environment for our employees, because they're the ones who provide this excellent customer service that we are known for and that the citizens of Clayton appreciate. So that's very good work, and we'll look forward to hearing back from you in 2 weeks.
Yep. And much appreciation for the different departments and town staff that's been working on this. And like I said, I've really put an extra effort on it the last few weeks. So.
All right. Up next is the mowing contract update.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, JD. Steve Blasco, Public Works Operations Manager. In July of 2020, the town of Clayton contracted with Diamond Lawn Care to maintain Highway 70, 42, the wastewater treatment plant, the railroad right-of-way along Front Street, portions of Main Street, and various areas around town. They have not met our expectations and have been instructed to stop services immediately. We have been in negotiations with the second lowest bidder, Lane Lawn Care, and have been successful in procuring an October 19th start date. Mr. Lane currently mows for the towns of Smithfield, Benson, and Smithfield Parks and Rec, and comes highly recommended with years of experience in mowing busy highways and parks. The town budgeted $130,933 for the mowing contract, and Mr. Lane has agreed to accept the contract at $12,166 per month for the remainder of the year. Due to a late start by our current contractor, we have $109,003 remaining in the budget, and Mr. Lane's cost will be for $105,916 for the remainder of the year. This will keep us under budget for the fiscal year 2020. We are anticipating signing a 2-year, 9-month contract with Mr. Lane, and with your approval, and to authorize the town manager to execute the contract.
Excellent. Any questions or comments?
I'll just add, again, similar to what we've talked about, trying to resolve things. Blake and Steve and their staff, everybody there has done a good job of getting this under control. We had a long-time provider. They didn't want to bid this time when it got more formal. We had a very good price with the low bidder. There was a pretty appreciable gap between the low bidder and the next highest up. Low bidder couldn't do it, so we've decided to move away from the low bidder from their service. And we've been very successful with the second low bidder to come back and negotiate down to our price and still provide us with the same service. So I want to give staff a great job of negotiation here. We've not signed the deals till y'all approve. You know, and I'll say this, I think staff was watching this, but Councilman Bunn and Councilman Granis also made a note of this and said what's going on early in my tenure, and we all came together and realized before the budget got away and before the year got away that we needed to do something. So it really shows how the cooperation with the council and the staff really works together and our successful way to bid or rebid items with our vendors. So we're really appreciative of all the efforts that have taken place. So
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor? I understand that one of the issues that we had with the former contractor was they either did not have the ability to do various weed eating in medians, and I would assume that this particular contractor will be able to do that and also essentially be able to do the same services as our previous contractor before the one that didn't work out. Is that correct?
He will. Like I said, he mows in Smithfield and Benson. He's more adapt to the main roads, if you will, where I think the current contractor we just had, he's more of a residential. I don't think he can handle it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a good job, by the way.
Thank you.
I do believe there was a looking for action. I'll defer to JD to confirm that, but excuse me, I believe that there was request for action for the council to authorize the manager executing the forward-looking 2-year contract.
Yes, I'll entertain a motion to authorize the execution of the contract.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the execution of the contract. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, next staff reports, beginning with the town manager.
yeah, I'm going to start again with good news tonight. And we've got a lot of good news at the staff level. Y'all heard about Robert Yarborough, and I won't spend a lot more time, Robert. You did promise me you would stay for one more big project, so you're shaking your head, yeah? One thing about Robert, I think that'll be a theme I'll end on is this town, and the mayor said that, has always had great service with our community. Robert's in a tough position. He has to call balls and strikes, and a lot of people don't like what he says. But the thing that Rich and I have always noted is people, even though they don't like what Robert says, Robert usually tell people what they can do about it, and you're helpful in the way you say no. So I think that's a real credit to you and credit to many of the staff people that are here. I want to start off tonight, Parks and Rec, Amy Sharon. She does a great job. I realize with Stacy how much she does do, a lot of times helping Stacy, but also with Jason's funeral, she was right there, really serving a key role and has really jumped into with the DDA events and whatnot. So Amy really gets a good plug from the frontline standpoint, as she should. My second one is Kathy Marasini, which in all the sadness with Stacy leaving, one of the good things is Kathy has stepped up and agreed to be our interim public information officer. So for those who don't know Kathy, she's got a degree in journalism and communication, as well as serving as a news editor for the Clayton News Stars for a number of years before spending some time at the chamber and joining us in some of the leadership of the box office here for the Clayton Center. So I'm very lucky to have her on an interim basis for stepping up. And then the two gentlemen you just saw, Blake Mills, Steve Blasco, and I think Justin Pulley too on the mowing contract was a big part of that. And I just want to say it didn't take much prodding or probing at them. The minute we knew we had a problem, those guys jumped on it, and within a couple of weeks we had a solution that we could work out to hopefully start in October and not miss stride with budget or service. So I'll start with those three good things. Financials. It's been one of my primary focuses as I've come in, as the council knows, and one of the things we talked about from the beginning. As you can see from Robert's presentation earlier, our purchase carryover was about 1.5 million total, about 800 and some thousand in the general fund. That was not in the budget. And so we're going to have to make some room to find that in the different funds. You've heard about the bulky waste tonight. You've heard about the mowing contract. It's a $74 million operation, but there's a lot of places here where the expenses have got to be watched. And even in some of our enterprise fund, like our water distribution costs, y'all heard about last time, about our our system and our need for more elevated storage kind of unexpectedly, as well as our AMI meter contract, where we've got some indications there's hundreds of thousands of dollars that may be in the swing there. So all told, I think in the past month, we've found roughly $2 to $2.5 million of things on the expense side that could be a deviation from what you had in your $32 million budget. And of course, that's part of concern, but part of what we're trying to do, because in your budget, there's 8 provisions here that need to be studied as you read through the budget in December. So as rapidly as possible, the staff and I are trying to get our arms around expenses and revenue so that we can make some good budget decisions for the second half of the year. Some numbers that some of the council has requested that I can read to you a little bit of what we've got, and then we can share this later in a presentation if Robert would put it together. But Robert pulled these numbers. Just fund balances of June 30 that Robert's pulled some to date. Caveats, we don't have all of our expenses in yet. But basically what we have in unassigned money, as far as we can tell at this point, is about $10.5 million. Okay? Now, what you guys have got in our financial policy is a minimum required of 20% in that balance, or an operational target of 30%. That budget's about 38% of your budget, which leaves somewhere between $2.2 and $5 million of unassigned money to get us through this deviation. Now, again, we're still some months away from looking at our sales revenue and our income, our ad valorem tax receipts and whatnot, but it's pretty close on a $74 million budget. So we're going to continue to manage that. But the good news is, I don't want to leave here with good news, is that we do have excess here. We're not in the hole. And unlike a lot of places that are going down during COVID, Clayton's definitely going up, but it's going up in both, hopefully, revenues, but definitely going up in expenses. So we're working hard to control that. Other comments I would make is our assessments. I think from a planning standpoint, I talked last time about trying to assess where we are with our outreach to our developers and our building community, our business community, and we're working on that. We have a series of mandated, the 160D statutes that'll be coming in January. We're working hard on the public information campaign, both Stacy and Kathy, to make sure that the public is as aware of that as possible. But there will be some feedback if we're changing policies and we're not maybe as user-friendly. We're trying to get out of that, get out in front of that as much as possible, as well as some changes in our ordinance that we would like to make next year. So a lot of changes going on in planning, and I've been meeting with some of our local property owners and developers to try to, with Samantha, with Rich, with Joshua, to make sure we're as customer-friendly, the Robert Yarborough style of doing things as we can be, where we're out to try to tell people what they can and can't do, but we want to tell them that in the most helpful and nice way we can to make sure Clayton's open for business. On the financial side, I mentioned last time we would start there with internal and move to an outside firm to come in and look at that. On the financial side, we've already had one internal meeting since the last meeting, and we're going to focus on purchasing and contracting. Again, we have on top of our $74 million combined budgets, we've got $120 million over 3 years. So we want that house to be in order. And again, we're not a small town anymore. So there's a lot of good ideas that have already been generated internally on that. The third was the police department. And the assessment we're doing there, Chief Myhan has asked, I think he asked in this budget for 4 employees and has asked for that again in December. We've talked about equipment, we've talked about training. And so the focus of this assessment is just on those topics so that we can have somebody from the outside, from a neutral standpoint, come in and evaluate that to give us all some ideas of where we should go. Some of those things can be implemented short term. Some of those will probably take a longer term. But we want to be prepared, and we want to be as fair and objective in the decisions we make with respect to personnel levels, training, and equipment as we can be. So that's the goal. For that, I've lost my piece of paper. I will be presenting that later, but I've gotten a proposal from Comprehensive Consultants, which is the two primary people that will be doing this will be 2 former Charlotte police captains Jimmy Fields and Tom Gwaltney. Both of those, Jimmy actually ran the City of Charlotte's training academy for a number of years, but they've done everything from emergency response to duty officers in charge to internal affairs. So I think from a standpoint of somebody that really knows the inside of what's required, both at the top and then back to a smaller area like Clayton, that will be able to inform us on that. Their proposal for that, and again, I'm not asking for action tonight, I believe I can do that within my own budget, but it's about $16,000 in labor and about $2,500 in expenses is what they've estimated at this point. And I need to finalize that contract with them coming up. The other thing that's in the media right now, and I just want to make a few, I'm not going to say much about it, but I think as everybody knows that hit the media, is we do have an SBI investigation of the police department that is ongoing. The one fact in all of that is that as soon as we were aware that there was potential, and I'll say potential criminal activity, Chief Mahan reported that to the FBI and to the district attorney, and things started happening with the SBI investigation. So that is the one truth, and you may see this in the media, but that is the one truth, that there is an investigation, and anything that appeared to be criminal has been referenced to the SBI. There's another part of that you may read just in advance. Some of this will be rumor and innuendo, and I'll be curious to see if the newspapers, if they report it, get it right. But they'll talk about some management issues and some other issues that may come up. So we will be addressing that as a separate issue. We're trying to be very careful that while there's an outside investigation going on, we don't get too crossed into that. But I will say this, that if we have bad apples, and this goes for any department, including the police department, but if we have some bad apples, we're going to get rid of them. And if we have some bad or hostile management practices, we'll get rid of those too. So I want all of our employees on the front line to feel like they can come to work. The jobs are hard enough. We have people that part of their jobs is to shovel waste. You know, some are to climb, like Dale's people, to climb power poles in the rain. Some are to fight fires, and some are to lock up criminals. Those jobs are hard enough. We want the best management structure possible, and we want our best people possible to focus on their jobs. So if there's any issues there, we will resolve those and move forward. Finally, I'll end and say this. There was a lot. We all had great, it's the wrong way to say it, but it was very motivating, maybe not great, but motivating to see the procession last Monday. And I'll say it from 2 points. You guys all saw the front end and how everything was out there, but I watched the back end, and I watched our frontline people across the town at their post. If they weren't at the funeral procession, they were at their post doing their jobs, giving that great customer service and doing their jobs if they weren't at the procession. So, you know, it reminded me everything good that was about Clayton and our frontline staff. And I think our frontline staff are the backbone of what we do, and we need to continue to appreciate them as good as we can and the best we can. I will say this, you know, it's been a tough year. 2020 has been a tough year on everybody, and I hear some things about morale and the way it was, but I looked at that fire department, and nobody here, you know, Steve Benson's doing well. We hope we have even better stories to do now, but we lost Jason and we lost Allison Vesey. We lost Allison on the same day of the funeral, guys. And so when I hear people say they're down or kicked a little bit, there ain't nobody been kicked as hard as that fire department's been kicked. And you know what? They're the best department we got in this town. The cream rose to the top, and they stood by their duty. And it was not just because of Lee. He'll say it's certainly not because of him. I know it's because of Lee and what Lee's built, but there's a culture in that fire department to stand up and to be the best. And I hope all the other departments, and no matter how bad it gets, they can look over at the fire department and say they've had as bad a 2020 as they've had, and they've come out on top and as good as anybody we got. So I'll stop there with my reports, and just anything you guys have for me as questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Questions or comments? All right, thank you, JD. Town Attorney?
No report.
Thank you.
Library update?
Notice that Blasco's running. Doesn't want to hear the library report. Okay, so it's hard act to follow on that last one, but we all agree with those sentiments that JD just said about the fire department. So last spring, when I was writing this grant that I'm going to talk about tonight, had no idea what was about to happen. In fact, I turned in this grant application on like February 25th at a conference that I was at. And then during that time at the conference, we were watching these news reports that were like, COVID-19 might disrupt operations across the country. And we were like, that's crazy. That'll never happen. So anyway, when we wrote this grant, our main focus was that we needed to improve education, or needed to improve the pre-kindergarten skills of the kids in Clayton. That was our goal. And then after COVID hit, we were unable to suddenly do all the things that we always do for children 0 to 5. At the point when I submitted this grant, we had, I think we were 500 attendees above the previous year's attendance numbers for our pre-K programs, which is huge. That means we were bringing in 80 to 100 children every week to do our story times. That was for 3 story times. We had their parents. We were the first stop for all the new moms coming into Clayton. And for those of you who talk about planning, you hear about all these new houses. We see the humans from those houses come into the library, and they need to meet people. They need to teach their kids. They've got stuff to do. So all of a sudden, we were unable to meet those families like we normally would. We didn't get to see the thousands of kids that we normally see every summer. I would say at this point in the year, we would have already seen about 400 kids coming in to get their reading, writing, singing, and playing with us at our story times. And so I want to just tell you a little bit about where we are with this grant process, and just show you some fun visual stuff down here. So the grant is called Active Reading Experiences, and the idea is that we're going to teach, we're going to do a couple of workshops, sets of workshops, and then we also have between 25 and 35 backpacks that we're going to lend out to families so that they can do active reading at home. Literacy and school skills are not things that children get from a screen. As much as we wish that they were, it's really hard to do all of your learning from a screen. And it's great, even, kids come into the library, they get a 30-minute story time, they sing, they play, they learn about the letter H. That's not enough. So these backpacks are designed to help parents learn how to read with their children. So many studies show that if you start children with a love of reading young, they'll grow up loving it their entire lives. I always tell people, the point of hanging out with your kid and reading is not to get through 50 books as fast as possible. The point is to enjoy that time with your child so that when they look back on it, even if they have maybe an organic reading disability or they have learning or cognition issues, they're not feeling like they've failed before they even get to the end of the book. You enjoy the activity with them so that it becomes a good experience for them all around. So I've got a bunch of backpack kits. Each kit, some of these we got they had pieces already, but we added a lot. These will, by the way, be fully sanitized every time they're turned in. We'll Clorox the thing, we'll quarantine them, we'll just clean the heck out of them. So we're thinking a few steps ahead on that one. And in fact, I'd written that into the grant before I knew what we were going to be dealing with. So that was always a goal of ours, to keep things clean and safe. But a family will pick this out. This is the school readiness backpack. And a lot of these kits are, they have bilingual resources in them, which is great because Cooper Academy has got the bilingual program. But each of them, they'll have 1 to 2 books. Sometimes they have 3. They've got paper, they've got a little pencil pouch, they've got little cute play characters. We have them, we made a really huge push to do diverse families, diverse characters, diverse kids. So when they open these up, they'll see kids and families and cultures that are not just reflective maybe of the one child checking it out, but of all the kids in our community. We've got little tiny pieces. I mean, they're just all kinds of great things. for the families, and we have activity cards in there that tell the parents how to play with the kids as they go through the backpacks. A lot of what we do in our library isn't just like, oh, we're going to give a kid a book and send them home. All of us have family, well, not all of us, but a number of us have families. We've got kids. I've got a 9-year-old at home who is so tired of me. She's spent so much time with me over the past 6 months. I mean, I'm great, but I don't know if she feels that way. But it's hard sometimes to come up with all the stuff that you need to do from yourself. Like, you know, if I were told, hey, you've got to teach your child how to do all the second grade math, I don't know where I would start. So we put activities in here that really coach the parents and give them, hey, you know, here's some construction paper and crayons. Have your child draw a picture of your family, and then have a child draw a picture of your neighbor's family, and then talk about how you're different, so that the moms or the dads or the cousins or the older brothers or whoever is helping the kid with these packs is not having to come up with that activity from scratch. But it's also helping the children build those narratives about themselves that really help them succeed later on. So anyway, we have all these really fun packs. I'm just going to show you this other cute one. This is the measuring backpack, and it helps children learn how to measure. And they have this really fun measuring tape. And I would normally allow Councilman Grandis to pull this and play with it, but we are distancing. So you can, you know, work on your 6 feet with something like this. But we have all these really fun little pieces that go into the packs. So these are going to be available now. We'll probably start lending them out this week. You can check them out for, oops, sorry guys. Sorry about that. You can check them out for 3 weeks at a time. And we really are excited. The kids have been coming in. They've seen our shelves. They've noticed that we've gotten more backpacks in every week, and they want to borrow them. And we say, no, you have to wait until we're done, until the crazy director gets all the 5,000 pieces in these cataloged, which takes a really long time. I'm not actually cataloging them, Gabe is, but we're really excited about it. After this, we'll be doing active reading workshops, and we're working with the Partnership for Children of Johnston County, and they've learned a lot from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library System, which has a really incredible reading program. So we're actually polling our public right now to see if they have interest in doing these online this fall, and if they don't, we're going to wait till we can do them in person, because like so many things, this is meant to be interactive, and if there's not enough interest to do it in the fall, we're not going to go through the rigmarole of doing everything online and having 2 people show up. It's just not worth it. It's not going to have the effect we want it to have. So we'll wait until we can do it, unless there is interest in doing it remotely, in which case we'd go for it. So that's all I've got. Do y'all have any questions? You can check these out too. They are really fun. We would ask that you would check it out with the child.
Joshua and Rich have one of those tape measures. They make
Yeah, they're super fun. And these will be really a jumping off point for us. Libraries don't just check out books anymore, they check out a bunch of stuff. I've been wanting to do backpacks for years. I really want to do some with Parks and Rec. I want to have a Clayton backpack that you can check out, that'll tell you all about Clayton, take you to the different trails, have a set of disc golf discs in it. So we have some good ideas, but this is just a great starting point. Sorry, y'all, that was long. Thank you.
Joy.
Oh, goodness, this is going to be a mess. Hang on.
Mr. Grandis.
Joy, I want to thank you and your staff for your ingenuity and the creative juices that you guys have to come up with things like this. And I can only imagine, you know, when these get into the hands of children as well as the parents, it's going to make a huge difference. And I really want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the lap update.
Again, Joshua Baird, town engineer. I don't have any props. no greenways, roads, bridges with me today. Last meeting, we went through just kind of an overview of the LAP program, locally administered projects program. We discussed kind of the process that staff had gone through to rank and come up with some projects that we wanted to at least put before the Campo staff through a pre-submittal and discuss with you as council. We've had those pre-submittal meetings last week, and coming out of those, want to kind of give you guys an update and then provide our staff recommendation moving forward, and then answer any questions. And then what we would look to do is have a resolution of support on the next meeting's agenda, consent agenda, following this discussion here. So just kind of a quick recap of the 3 projects and the information that we got back from Campo staff. The first I'll run through was the bridge replacements along the Mountains to Sea Trail along back behind Riverwood. There's 3 bridges there that are getting to the end of their lifespan. Certainly some costs that we are going to need to start programming into the future. Talked with Campo staff about that one, and there was not a real sense that that one would rank real competitively. There's not necessarily new connections, necessarily new anything or new connections for pedestrians. It's more of just a replacement project. So the feeling was that wouldn't really initially rank real competitive as far as some of the other projects that are new infrastructure, new connections, getting residents to new places. So coming out of that meeting, specifically on that one, our recommendation would be that we do not submit an application for the replacement of the 3 bridges at Riverwood. The second project that we discussed with through the pre-submittal meetings was the, calling it 42 extension, or excuse me, drawing a blank on now what we're referencing as, but basically the Greenway extension along 42 from Front Street down to Glen Laurel Road. So this project is currently in the state's STIP. It is for PE and right-of-way in 2027 and construction in 2028. If you recall, roughly estimating around $1.5 million for that total project. Discuss this one, could certainly be a viable LAP project. You know, from the town standpoint, it basically comes down to is the 20% match, that minimum match, is that something that we want to proceed with in order to kickstart this project 5 or 6 years before DOT could even get to it, and just verify that it does continue to move on. So the minimum match is 20% on a project like that. Staff's recommendation would be that we do submit a LAP project for this 42 Greenway. Go ahead and connect East Front Street down to Glen Laurel. Again, 20% match that puts, you know, total project somewhere $300,000 to $400,000 that the town would be committing in order to really bump up how soon this project could get on the ground and get moving before NCDOT could get to it. And, you know, if the NCDOT does, there may be also additional requests from them. So if we go ahead and get it in there, that would be staff's recommendation. There could be some economic benefit to that. It would be completing in a section from the Glen Laurel area, East Clayton Community Park, and bringing people into downtown. So there could be some economic driver as well as that once that connection's made. Third project is the North Connector, a large project. We talked through Campo staff with this project, looking at the way the program is set up and where the Northern Connector is in the current MTP. Basically the 2-lane section would be the project that would be eligible for LAP. So we've discussed a total of 110-foot right-of-way, median divided 4-lane. The eligible project would really be the 2-lane section. We discussed getting creative with really what 2 lanes those are, and so in constructing it in such a manner where you can get 2 lanes in and come back with the additional 2 when they're really warranted. Total project cost, if you recall, approximately somewhere around 37 to 40 million for the just 2-lane section. There's some significant infrastructure and bridge and all that would be associated with that project. Looking at a town match, minimum match of 20%, somewhere in the 7.5 to 8 million range. That project has been submitted into the spot scoring and prioritization process. We don't necessarily know where that one would rank. Rankings won't be out till later next year, around May or so. So it's possible that that would eventually make its way into STIP, but there's some uncertainty with that. So with North Connector, our recommendation would be that we do submit a formal application for the Northern Connector as a lap project, and with that one too, the same minimum match of a 20% match on that one. Just a reminder from last time, these projects, if we submit the application, if they're awarded, once we go through the agreements, we do have 10 years to fully complete the project. If we do not completely complete the project in 10 years, then we have to repay those funds back. So just kind of overall, staff's recommendation, again, just to recap here, would be to submit formal applications for the 42 East Greenway, just for design, 20% match, and then Northern Connector, design of Northern Connector, and with a 20% match. So that's our recommendation. We can take any questions. If there are no questions and everyone's no other questions, then what we'd look to do is have a resolution of support on the consent agenda for next meeting. Mayor?
Yes. All right, I think we're good, Joshua. Thank you so much for the update.
Yes, sir.
You're next.
You want me to introduce you again?
You don't have to introduce me if you want to. I didn't know if you were called for it.
Up next is going to be a very, very quick stormwater update.
And I allowed you to introduce it with the quickness. All right, I'll try to just real quick recap. We've had several kind of real flashy, intense rain events here lately. We've been getting numerous drainage complaints from those. I want to just kind of quick overview of what we're doing, kind of what our process is, and really as we're really trying to kickstart this program, a few things that we're working towards. When the drainage complaints come in, kind of talk through our process. We're looking to document all these. We're looking to use city work, service orders, work orders, service requests and all to document those. There is a GIS function of that, so that when these projects come in, we can put them into a map. We can look at heat maps, understand, do we have any hot spots around town that we are getting a lot of complaints from that may be due to undersized infrastructure. And then from that, we can really come up with some capital improvement projects from a stormwater standpoint once we kind of know if there's hot spots or, from those heat maps. So that's something we're looking to do, is just to start really documenting those. And as we develop that program, really develop a stormwater CIP as well on where improvements are needed around town. There'll need to be further discussions about how we pay for those and how we fund those projects as we continue to get them. But with all projects, we're doing some desk research at the desk, looking at the plats, looking if there's easements, looking what infrastructure's in the area, and then we're trying to go out to all of them. We're trying to go and verify that there is no public infrastructure that is either clogged or maybe contributing to the issue. Even if it's a private issue, we're trying to talk with the residents or who it may be and say, give them some kind of feedback on what we see that's going on, though we can't put public dollars to it if it's on a private property, but we do at least try to get the residents headed in the right direction. And we're not going to give specific advice, but at least give them some resources that they can look into to research and figure out what's going on there. Some of the issues may be still in a development stage, so we can work with the contractors to work with the developers that we have now to see if that's something that we can get resolved. We do have one staff really that's dedicated to stormwater and all, and we've got some help from other construction project administrators as well as part-time staff. So it takes us a day or two to really follow up, especially after a rain event, and we get several coming in, but we do try to get out there and at least look into each of them. One other thing we're doing too is our utility folks, that through their SCADA system at the lift stations, there's rain gauges. So we have 11 rain gauges around town that actually show the actual intensity, a rate in inches per hour, other than just the cumulative rainfall. So we can use that data to really understand if we have something that's overtopping or undersized, really understand what it's designed for and then what rain event we're seeing. So a lot of these times we're seeing rain events that surpass that we're designing it to. So that rain data we can access, and we can really understand what's going on and understand the issue. A lot of times too, if we have an issue, we have to look at it holistically too. We can't just fix one issue, because if you open up increase the pipe size in one area, a lot of times that's just going to cause more drainage to go further downstream. So a lot of times it may seem like an easy solution that we just enlarge a pipe, but we also have to look downstream. Once we enlarge that pipe, then what is the next downstream infrastructure that may be undersized or may need to look at, as well as a larger area. So again, we're working hard to keep all this moving, as well as keep and put new ordinances and policies and procedures in place that hopefully we're catching some more of these and being able to be prepared for a lot of these as we move forward. I will say too, just while I'm here, I mean, if there are any complaints or you were made aware of any, we have an email address that's set up that directly goes to stormwater staff, so stormwater@townofclaytonnc.org. And so that hits several desks, and that is a good way just to communicate if something does come up or want to bring something to staff's attention. That is a tool that we're using to document and to receive some of these drainage complaints. So just kind of a quick update, as we've seen kind of a lot of flashy and real intense storm events over the past month or so.
So where are we with the stormwater issue with Covered Bridge Road and some of the homes that are affected along that road?
So we have been working with NCDOT to look at what they can do. There's some ditch maintenance that can be done. My understanding is it is on the schedule. Just with some other things going on, they're kind of waiting until it dries out, but it is on the schedule to do some ditch maintenance, clean out the ditch, increase the conveyance. Additionally, there is some infrastructure down further Covered Bridge that is on town property that we've been coordinating with NCDOT to come up with a plan such that they can reroute some of the drainage and involve some of our infrastructure. We've agreed to that, and just waiting for their maintenance staff to be able to make that happen. So I think we reached back out a couple days ago. I don't know if I've got the latest update as far as a time frame, but DOT is working on a solution there to, again, open up some of the ditches, increase the conveyance capacity there.
Yeah, and I'll add, and then I think some of the initial complaints came from Mr. House in that area. That's when you're talking about. Shortly after those complaints came, I met with Mr. House, with Joshua. We walked a lot of his property and his brother's property. I signed a agreement with DOT that they could put more water on our property further downstream. So that's been signed, and that was necessary. Council reviewed that, but that was necessary for us to get authorization from the clean the ditches out throughout in front of Mr. House and in that area. I've also asked Joshua if he would, which may or may not be related. Mr. House thinks it is, but we're going to have a meeting. We have to have a meeting with the upstream developer on that project and a couple other projects where we all have some different issues going on. But to talk about Mr. House's project with the upstream developer as well, to see what we can all do. So.
Anyone else? Thank you, Joshua.
Yes, sir.
Water tank update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, Rich Capola, Deputy Manager. This will be a real quick update. We spoke last time, and you guys supported an application for the SRF for a future elevated storage tank, which was submitted by the deadline of September 30th. We really appreciate Withers and Ravenel staff pulling that together somewhat last minute. In addition to that need for the water storage, we have secured approximately 230,000 gallons within the Johnston County storage tanks currently. Excuse me. We're determining what kind of formal agreements need to be established there. But one opportunity that's come to us actually just by happenstance, Caterpillar actually reached out to our staff about a week and a half, or a couple weeks ago now, regarding this existing tank that they have on their site, which was initially constructed back in the 70s when there really wasn't a lot of elevated storage in the area, and the distribution system hadn't been fully built out on that side of town. They were actually looking to see if they could possibly decommission this tank and just upsize their line off of the current municipal system so that they could remove the need or the maintenance for that tank. So they have a tank they don't want or don't need. We are in search of a tank. So we're hoping that through a little bit of investigation and a little more due diligence here, we may be able to come up with an agreement where that tank, which again was originally built in the 70s, it's approximately 250,000 gallons, could be transferred to the town, or at least operationally somehow an agreement can be made between us and Caterpillar to take that on and add it to our public water supply system. As of right now, we've just been talking with the local staff, the facility staff, that we're really trying to lessen their maintenance load. They actually had a scheduled third party coming in to, excuse me, they had scheduled maintenance for October 12th to fully drain the tank and do some additional maintenance on it. So we've actually scheduled our third party inspector, who currently maintains all of our tanks, to come in and do an inspection of theirs to determine what, if any, repairs or improvements may be necessary, as well as any other infrastructure upgrades, upsizing of the pipe to it, or other connections that may be made for us to formally add it to our public water supply. So more to come on this, but again, opportunity for a win-win here with us and one of our great neighbors here at Caterpillar. Any questions?
Just remember, this will be a short-term solution still, because 230 from the county and 250 here, that won't solve our whole growth problem with water storage, but it'll give us some time while, as Rich said, we've got an SRF contract brewing, and we're looking at a land swap now to get our tank site back, and but staff has done a great job with this. They really have.
More to come.
Awesome.
That's it.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll now open the floor for informal discussion and public comment. Anyone wish to speak, please step forward and state your name for the record.
I believe we have Mr. Weiss is with us this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everybody doing? Thanks for letting me come by and talk. One of the things I will mention in regards to the meeting that was earlier, one of the speakers that was here earlier, Jody, I did forward you some information. There is information available. FEMA does provide funding and grants for relocating overhead power lines to underground. There's an example of what's going on in Leland, North Carolina, and also what was done in Independence, Missouri. So you'll have that information to share with the appropriate people to do some more research. I think it's a great idea. It sure will make downtown look absolutely beautiful if it could be pulled off. So that's one thing. I wanted to talk, I was happy to hear about bulky waste getting handled. That was actually the reason why I came here, because it got me to do some thinking, and I looked at some things. And one of the two things I kind of wanted to talk about was, were y'all aware of how our current tax rates per $100 compare with other municipalities in our area? Did y'all know? Okay, tell me where we are. Anybody know what rate we're being charged? Citizens are being charged per 100? What? How much?
The town is charging 58 cents.
There you go. Good. All right, so here for you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so as y'all can see, we have the highest rate per 100 in any municipality in the area. And unfortunately, it's gone up since 2016, where the other towns and municipalities have actually gone down substantially. As an example, Cary is only charging 35 cents per 100. Now, that might be because their houses are a little bit more expensive than the houses that are here in Clayton. However, what it shows me when you look at it is that these municipalities have done their due diligence to help drive costs down. And when you drive costs down, you have happier constituents and happier citizens. I looked at my tax bill. It's $1,815 a year for this town of Clayton. And I'm sure I'm not alone, that other people have looked at their tax bills and wondered, why is it so high? So I guess my question is, as public comment, is what are we doing as the town of Clayton to help measure and compare ourselves, but also help to drive the cost down for our citizens? Because it's in direct conflict with what every other municipality is doing in our area. Okay? So if I may ask, I'm not asking for an answer today, that was kind of a rhetorical question, but could we see some type of program put in place by the leadership of this town that says, this is what we're going to strive to do, and this is what we're going to try to do for the citizens from an economic standpoint of helping us match what's currently out there? Because I will tell you that people who are looking at this thing are saying to themselves, hey, I'm moving to Clayton. Why am I paying so much more money for taxes to this town when I don't have the same infrastructure of services and things, for example, at Morrisville or Wake Forest or Holly Springs or Cary? But I think it needs to be addressed. So could I ask that the leadership group put together some type of program to help us citizens realize a tax savings benefit for the future?
I think this council can take that under advisement, absolutely.
Okay, that would be wonderful. And I think everybody would have great benefit to it. Maybe it can't happen, but I think we should strive to do that for the good of the people that live here. Out of curiosity, I'm not aware, but how many single-family homes are in the town of Clayton? Does anybody know, or is that a question that should be posed to the planning department?
I have no idea.
Anybody know? Okay. Because as you know, the brunt of this, when we're talking about tax per 100, the real brunt is based on those people that own single-family homes. We're the ones that pay it directly out of our income or lack of income. You know, you got huge corporations that own a lot of rental houses out in Riverwood. You know, you've seen the rolls. I mean, it's what, 17, 16 pages? They really don't care about the tax rate. They're out in California. They got 500 houses or whatever, how many they got in Riverwood, they don't care. The people that care are the people that are moving here, they're the individuals. And that's really what we need to do, is help look after those folks and see what we can do for the individual homeowners here in the town of Clayton, okay? I'll leave you with that. There's one other thing I did want to ask. Mr. Solomon, you had mentioned earlier, 2 weeks ago, about consultants. And I think you mentioned a little bit about it today. I have a concern about consultants. Consultants will not always tell you what you want to know. They'll tell you what other people are doing. But at the same time, you're in an interim role. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would it be wise at this point in time to engage consultants when you're in an interim role and not wait until we get a permanent town manager on site, so that permanent town manager can then decide whether there should be a consultant here or not? Something to think about, okay? I think, again, we're looking at the wise use of our money, because we could hire somebody 6 months from now, 3 months from now, whoever, when it's going to be, and that person may want to bring in consultants again. And then all of a sudden, we're changing everything around again. End of the day, I think we should have a stable leadership group here before we start bringing, in my opinion, before we start bringing in consultants to tell us what to do.
Sure.
Okay?
Do you want me to answer any of that? I mean, I'm not answering.
You can if you want to.
Yeah, and I usually, it's your 3 minutes, so
Yes,
I don't want to get in your time, but one of the things that we have talked about are there are a few areas where a new manager would like a jump start probably. And the new manager will not be here until the budget season is already underway. So part of what these small assessments that we're doing, and they're relatively small, but is to inform priorities. There may be 6, 8, 9 things we need to do. We probably can't get started but on 1 or 2 of those. But it will lay a foundation for what's happening next. And in many of these cases, it's trying to set the budget framework for next fiscal year, regardless of when that new manager comes in. This council will be better informed about what the actual needs are. Because back to your point, we don't want to spend any more money than we have to in the wrong places.
I don't think so.
So that's what a lot of these assessments are aimed at that.
Okay.
To making sure we're doing the right thing at the right time.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that feedback. Thank you. Thank you again for letting me speak, and have a good evening, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Up next is council comments, and I would like to begin. And I'm going to ask our public information officer to be front and center.
No.
Town of Clayton's first public information officer. Amazing work. And we are super sad to see that you are leaving the town of Clayton. However, it's for a tremendous opportunity for you, a tremendous opportunity for your family. And, you know, how can you say no to something like that? But I realize that this evening is your last meeting with us as a council. And on the flip side of that, everybody watching by camera, it doesn't mean she won't be back because she'll be a citizen. So she can feel free to have a voice, not that she hasn't had one since she's been public information officer. But we just wanted to let you know that all your fans out there watching this broadcast, they want you to know how much we appreciate all the good work that you've done for the town of Clayton. And it's evident that you love Clayton. And everybody is thrilled that you're going to still call Clayton home. And we just can't wish you. Now, look, if you're going to start doing this, then I'm going to fall out up here.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, everybody wants you to know how much we appreciate the great job you've done. And you know what? Like, when Steve Biggs left here, we all talked about, wow, it's some damn big shoes to fill, you know? And I think the same can be said for you, some big shoes to fill. But I know that we're going to find a great candidate, and I know we're going to find someone who meets what we're looking for in a public information officer. Because how do we know what we need? Because we've had the best, you know? I mean, and it's pretty, I know, flattery, but just let it sink in that you're awesome, that you're overwhelmingly talented, and Wake County is really getting one hell of a jewel in an employee coming very, very shortly. But we want you to know on behalf of the town of Clayton how much we appreciate you, and we love you, and we wish you the very best ever. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
Hey.
Thank you. I'll just say really quickly, I'm not going away, so that makes this a little easier for me. But it is very difficult because I've give so much and have so much passion for this town and my fellow employees and helping people understand government. You know, I wanted to reply to the gentleman who was here because I have sat looking at CAFRs and looking at what 1 penny of tax revenue generates in Clayton and how it isn't equivalent to Apex or Cary, and those comparisons aren't always fair. And my husband and son will look at me and say, "What are you doing?" Because I just want people to understand how hard all of us work, the difficult decisions that we face. and that we don't take them lightly, and we're not cavalier, and that all of you agonize over things, and that all of our employees agonize over things. And boy, the timing sucks because we're at such a critical point in this town's history and growth.
Yeah.
And I understand that. So, you know, I am going to be here, and I am going to be one of the biggest advocates for helping to continue to educate people about how much it takes to run a town. You know, we take for granted that the water's just going to come on and the lights are just going to come on and the officers are just going to respond in minutes to our emergencies, but so much goes on behind the scenes. And as a reporter for 15 years, it looks so easy on the outside. I had no idea how much goes into running a town. And I will continue to try to help my neighbors understand that. And I will miss all of you, but I'm still here, and you'll see me riding the Greenway with Spencer, and we'll come and sit in the audience here, and you can always call me, because Clayton is our home. It's where I'm raising my family, and I'll always love it here. And I will miss this, and you'll probably have to say no when I try to help, because I can't see on Friday at 5 o'clock me stopping, worrying, and thinking about all of you and making sure that you can continue to be successful. But thank you for giving me the opportunity. It seems like 100 years ago that I started here, but I love every day seeing the wonderful things that are happening in this town, and I'm glad I'll still be here. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, and best wishes. All right, any other comments? If not, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session after a 15-minute break.
That's right.
Say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Nothing else to come before this council. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Good night.